Good morning. I'm Linda Andrus, the licensed Unity teacher here at Unity of Missoula, and it is my pleasure to greet you on Easter Sunday. Unity of Missoula is a teen ministry founded on the 5 basic principles of unity. God is all good and active in everything, everywhere. I am naturally good because God's divinity is in me and in everyone. I create my experiences by what I choose to think and what I feel and believe. Through affirmative prayer and meditation, I connect with God and bring out the good in my life. I do and give my best by living the truth I know. I make a difference. At this point on Sundays, we usually read the Daily Word, which is a bi-monthly publication from Unity Worldwide Ministries. The word for today is Easter. I recognize the risen Christ in family, friends, and in my spiritual community. Early in the evening on the day of resurrection, Jesus, unrecognized, joins 2 of his followers as they journey from Jerusalem toward the nearby village of Emmaus. Accepting an invitation to stay and share a meal, Jesus takes bread, blesses, and breaks it, then gives it to his hosts. In that moment, their eyes are opened. They recognize Jesus, and alive in their hearts, he vanishes from their sight. Later, the 2 explain to others how the risen Christ became a living presence to them in the fellowship of breaking bread. Easter celebrates the risen Christ, an immortal presence freed from all limitation, awaiting discovery in every person and life event. I recognize the risen Christ in shared experiences with family, friends, and my spiritual community. And from Luke chapter 24, verse 31, then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. There are a few announcements I'd like to make. Next Sunday, our speaker will be Cheryl Silberman. She is planning on doing next Sunday's service as a Zoom meeting. So if you haven't been receiving the emails from Unity telling you how to connect with our Sunday services, please call and leave a message in the office with your email address, and we will send you a link so that you may join us through Zoom. None of our regularly scheduled meetings in our church building are meeting at this point in person. If you would like to check, there may be Zoom meetings that you can join. Before we move on to this week's talk, I would like to affirm Unity's primary affirmation. There is only one presence and one power in my life, the all-loving goodness of God. So we move deeper into that awareness and affirm again. There is only one presence and one power in my life, the all-loving goodness of God. In addition, here is our Missoula Unity affirmation. We are Unity of Missoula. We are a radiating center of divine love, open and accessible to all. We are God's light, peace, and joy – wherever we are. Unity of Missoula maintains a circle of people who have made a commitment to pray every day for others at their request. If you have names of people to hold in prayer for the month, please call the church and leave a message with those names. They will be sent out to our prayer circle for 30 days of prayer, and they are forwarded to Silent Unity as well. Please join me now for a moment of prayer as we hold all of those people in our hearts. We see the divine order that is unfolding in their lives, awakening them to the presence of the divine within them and within all the circumstances of their lives. Dear God, we hold these friends and loved ones in our hearts. We behold their light as expressions of the indwelling Christ. We release them to your care and affirm divine order in their lives and in ours. Thank you, God. Amen. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, who is a longtime attendee and valued member of our church community. And so I turn this over to Roger Harvey.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. I was thinking about how difficult it is to sit in one place for so long and talk. The thing came to me that my mother said to me one time when I was small: if you don't stop wiggling around, I'm going to take you to Dr. Leeds and see if you have worms. So, with that being said, once again we find ourselves cloistered in our homes, unable to come to church and be with our friends at Unity of Missoula. It's a great time of change, and if Easter is nothing more than a great celebration of great change. So in this time of quietness in our lives, we have an opportunity to grow personally, as a city, a state, a nation, and a world. Let us hope that we all take that time to do that. On that very first Easter, mankind experienced for the first time the truth of their being. Christ, Jesus, rose and showed us that death was just one more river to cross, just one more place to climb to the top of, one more rising into everlasting life. In Charles Fillmore's book, Keeping a True Lent, he says this about Easter: Easter is a celebration of the resurrection of Jesus. Its inner meaning and spiritual significance is the awakening and rising of spiritual consciousness of the I am of man. The resurrection is the rising up of the whole man, spirit, soul, and body, into Christ's consciousness of life and wholeness. So yes, we're here to celebrate Jesus' resurrection and our impending resurrection, our ever growing closer to that holy spot that Christ so brilliantly showed us. He called for us to awaken to the Christ within ourselves. He demonstrated how that was going to happen and how it could go. It was a great gift he gave us. He showed us that we could rise into our wholeness, into our perfection, into an everlasting, eternal love. That all sounds really wonderful, doesn't it? Perfection, wholeness, everlasting love. Yet, I wonder how many of us are able to hold that in our consciousness and believe it wholeheartedly every day. That's a difficult question to ask. It's something that I think we all must face, but it is difficult. I know for myself, I have believed that it was a broken promise for most of my life. Yet in this church, that has been renewed, and I may vacillate from time to time, but the knowledge that then the indwelling Christ in me and every one of you is truly the truth. And I know that if Charles and Myrtle Fillmore were here, they would tell us that that was really error thinking to think that what Christ did wasn't for all of us. They would get on us pretty hard. I think they might even remind us to think about the parable of the prodigal son and remind ourselves that we too have wandered a long ways from our Father's house. We have stumbled here and there and returned at the same time. And every time we return, we're never cast aside. We are opened, we are gifted with the open heart of the God taking us into the place of perfection every time. We are never left alone in that. If you think about the parable of the shepherd and the sheep, where the shepherd has to gather all the sheep together and finds that one is missing. And he goes out and finds that last lamb. These parables are Jesus' promises to us that we too will be found. We too will never be lost. All we have to do is return in our minds to the perfection that God is, that perfection that dwells within us. I'd like to share with you a couple quotes that express this better than I do from Charles Fillmore. I think that will help fill in some spaces that I'm not able to do well. This first one is a quote about every time that we have an experience that raises our consciousness and how that fits into this whole scheme of things. And this is what Charles says. You may think that the uplifting is just a passing exaltation, but it is stamped itself on your soul and body and marks the planting of a new idea and the upward trend of the whole man. So these experiences that we have that raise our consciousness, reading a book that inspires us, having somebody tell us that they love us, any experience where we raise our consciousness, Charles is telling us that it's stamped on our soul, on that everlasting part of us that never goes away. The body will pass away, but the soul never does. It's everlasting, it's eternal. So every one of those experiences that we have are stamped on that, never to be lost. An attainment that we hold dear to ourselves and our minds and bodies and in our lives. The attainments that bring us ever closer to our own resurrection. And then the last part of that statement, it says, new ideas and an upward trend of the whole man. I think this is really important. Charles talks about several places, and I've used it in different talks, but the idea that we're evolving ever upward. that it doesn't matter that we sometimes slip and fall and take 4 or 5 or 6 steps backwards, who knows how long. But in the long run, we always come forward a step or 2 further. We are always growing and evolving into our Christ selves. This next quote, when I read it, I smiled. I just absolutely grinned. And even now, as I get ready to read it to you, I can't help but smile and bring it on my face. But this is what he says. All things, all actions, all principles are working towards the unity of God, man, and the universe. All things are working for our reunification with our Christ nature. Life itself is bringing us forward. I just think that's brilliant, and I love the thought that no matter what I think's going on in the world, everything is moving us forward towards our new understanding of ourselves. Even the COVID-19 virus is giving us an opportunity to be quiet at home, to find a compassion for taking care of each other in a difficult situation. Seeing the number of people who are singing on the internet for other people. People who are, the newspaper deliverer who was bringing groceries to people now just called them all up. They didn't even know who he was. And now he's delivering groceries to them. Inspired in a time of difficulty. Those things are stamped on our souls, everlasting, raising us up. What a gift to know that this eternal process is always working in our benefit, for our good. And our job is to see it and make good choices, to choose to see the best in these things, to find something good for ourselves and others in it. This is the last of the quotes I want to share with you today. We will find that every step forward we take in our evolution, there is a sloughing off of, a doing away with some parts of consciousness that do not accord with higher principle. That was written 70-some years ago, maybe longer, by Charles. And now anytime you pick up a new inspired book of healing by a psychologist or a counselor or a minister, they're always talking about letting go of things. And Charles is just telling us, with every time we get one of these things stamped on our soul, we're having to let go of something. An old thought, an old belief, an old behavior, an old feeling. We're letting go of those things that we might rise closer to our own divinity. Every time these things are happening. So what does this mean on Easter, on this Easter Sunday? Well, I began with the quote that said, we are celebrating the resurrection of Jesus. But we too are celebrating our own resurrection. It's a process. Unfortunately, in my book, it seems to be a very long process. But it is a process, and it's going on. And life itself is moving us in that direction, stamping these things on our souls, these great gifts that we get and opportunities we have to rise above our human selves. And I don't think he was talking about just this lifetime, but every lifetime we've ever lived. That every experience we've had that has raised us in our consciousness is stamped on our souls. These attainments that we carry with us, whether we remember them or not, are there. And in some point in time, I believe we will come in contact with that stuff and know what we have done. The closer we get to our own resurrection, the closer we get to the understanding of the Christ within us. Every time we have passed through the dark night of the soul, we have come out more whole. We have come out clearer. We have sloughed something off, one of those behaviors, one of those beliefs. And we've planted a new seed that is planted in the fertile ground of infinite possibility. We are there. We are here on Easter Sunday celebrating our resurrection as well as Jesus' resurrection. The way shore demonstrated to us the great gift that he had for us, that we too are the sons and daughters of the living God. We too can return to the Father's house at any time, and we will not be rebuked. We will not be cast aside. They're going to throw us a party. They're going to have a great celebration. For each lamb that was found is a great, great, great gift to all of us. I'd like to finish with this Easter Sunday reading from the book for fasting and feasting. This is a writing from James Dillard Freeman. And I read this morning and I thought, maybe I should just read this for the talk because it says what I want to say. So this is what James Dillard Freeman says. There was one who showed us what we all might be, what height of fulfillment, what depth of compassion, what breadth of understanding might be ours if we were all that we might be. Ours to love with love that excludes none, God gives itself to all. To have a sense of right values, placing spiritual things first, yet using spiritual powers to transform the physical world. To be master of self and superior to circumstance. To be humble of spirit, yet conscious of eternal worth. To be at peace, yet to be centered, be the center of energy. To be God-centered, to focus through which his powers flow, freely and joyously achieved. To be unlimited in vision and to attain what we envision. To experience the fullness of compassion, yet live with the fullness of joy. To be able to help all who turn to us, to bless the lives we touch, to turn sorrow into joy, hate into love, sickness into health, lack into fulfillment, and death into life. To be one with the essential harmonies that is the center of all things. This is what we all might be. Thank you for coming and listening on your computer to this talk. If we could now just center ourselves for just a moment or two. Take a deep breath with me, in and out. And once again, in and out. And I want want you to imagine yourself in an ancient forest. The trees are mighty and tall and filled the heavens with green leaves and branches. You and I have been walking on this path all day long. It rises and falls. There's a rock here and there we have to go around or over. And as the sun begins to set, we turn and look backwards. It's too dark to go back. So we turn forward. And at first it's surprising, but the path seems to be lit. As we look, we see a lamp held high and a hand beckoning us forward, calling us forward into our lives. So we step forward. We walk towards that corner. Yet before we get there, the lamp has moved to the next corner, the next curve of the road, and the hand beckons us forward. And once again, we walk towards the light. This is Easter. This is Christ, the way shower, showing us, demonstrating for us where we should walk. Always towards the light. Never too far away that we can't see it. But always beckoning us to the truth of our being. To that Christ nature that lives and dwells at the very center of our being. The great love of God, be blessed by this Easter day. Know the truth of who you are. For you and I are the children of the living God, whole, complete, and perfect as we are. Namaste.
And so, as we close, we move back from this path in the forest into wherever we are at this moment. And we affirm together Unity's prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Amen. Amen. And blessings to all on this Easter.